Acadiana. It is Thursday, March 4th, 2021, and you're listening to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS radio. You can find the print versions of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today, we're joined again, thankfully, by Daniel Rayburn. Welcome to Local News Live, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to get out of the way of the stories and go listen on Cypress Street.
Good morning, Acadiana. It is my pleasure to be here with you once again, bringing you the news of today. As usual, we have plenty of headlines to get to, so we're just going to jump right into that. We start, as we do, in the Acadiana area. And looking at our first headline, it reads, Staged Return. Venues welcome return to indoor live music while improving safety. And this is written by Adam Daigle. At the Rockin' Bowl of Lafayette, owner Johnny Blanchard hopes to have a live music schedule out by next week. It's a long time coming for the popular live music venue on the edge of downtown Lafayette, as live music can now return to indoor music venues as the state moves into Phase 3 of coronavirus rules. Governor John Bel Edwards announced on Tuesday. Other restrictions remain, but Tuesday's news is a start, Blanchard said. Quote, "We certainly have a long way to go in order to have a profitable business again. There are still a lot of restrictions in place on us, but we are very encouraged that we are at least getting a chance to start having live music again. We certainly do have the ability to do this safely and cleanly, and we are asking for this to allow us to do so. The order allows live music, but it's not without restrictions. Gatherings in indoor event halls are limited to 50% capacity, up to 250 people, and bars and restaurants still can't sell alcohol past 11 p.m. The order also specifies how musicians are allowed to perform, including band members being socially distanced and testing negative for COVID-19 within the past 10 days. Performers who do not sing must wear a face covering. The HVAC system must provide at least 6 air changes per hour within the space occupied by the audience and performers. Venues have an option to provide one of 6 other mitigation efforts, including a plexiglass barrier in front of the performers. Rockin' Bowl had a needlepoint bipolar ionization system installed, a measure that creates cleaner air inside facilities. These are installed on airlines, Blanchard noted, and airlines are at 100% capacity. Quote, "We can create an environment that is second to none," Blanchard said. "Coronavirus doesn't last 30 minutes in our facility. We've been able to provide this all along, but now we're just getting the opportunity. We're going to do this safely, and we're going to be responsible." At the Grouse Room in downtown Lafayette, owner Matt Chason said he's cautiously optimistic about the restrictions. He's been eager to bring people inside his downtown bar for live music. Quote, "The fact is that over the last 12 months, we've been closed more than we've been open," he said. "And so, like a lot of people, we've kind of been hanging on by a thread. And I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's some optimism. And hopefully, everything keeps moving that way." Chason closed the Grouse Room in its former location in Park Lafayette in mid-March, when the governor ordered many businesses to close in an effort to slow the spread of the virus. He reopened in mid-June at 417 Jefferson Street, only to be ordered to close again 2 weeks later as COVID-19 cases spiked again. In September, he built an outdoor stage after getting a conditional restaurant permit and reopened his business while complying with the state's restrictions. He plans to continue hosting outdoor concerts when possible, which the state also encourages because of the reduced risk of COVID-19 transmission. But Chassel said indoor concerts will be a game changer. Quote, "We actually have had to cancel about 90% of our outdoor shows because of the cold or rain or combination of those," he said. "So to be able to go indoors, even at limited capacity with a lot of other restrictions, if the weather is bad, obviously helps out a lot." Downtown bar owner Robert Grucio said much of the disagreements between bar owners in the state could have been resolved or mitigated had there been an outreach effort from Governor Edwards' office. The restrictions handed down were issued to all establishments regardless of size. Although his establishments don't specialize in live music, extending the hours to serve alcohol would have been beneficial. The governor's orders did not lift that, but bars and parishes that have a positivity rate below 5% can be at 50% capacity. Business was down last year at his locations, as much as 70%, but Gracio noted that they fared better than other establishments in Lafayette that had been closed during the pandemic. Quote, "We're at it daily. We're doing everything we can to keep our expenses low," he said. "Our businesses would benefit more from extending our hours of operation, even more so than increasing capacity at our establishments. If you extend the hours and leave the capacity, you're going to result in a safer situation with more social distancing. Let us stay open until 2 a.m., please. The reality is hardly anyone is going out to have fun because the hours when you go out to have fun are not 6 to 9 p.m. or 7 to 10 p.m. People want to go out from 9 to 2 a.m. Staff..." And now, we move to our next headline, which reads, "Deputy injured, man killed in shooting. Neighbors say deceased was veteran who suffered from PTSD." And this is written by Katie Gagliano. A Vermilion Parish Sheriff's Office deputy was wounded and another man was killed in a shooting in Abbeville on Wednesday afternoon. The shooting occurred at about 12:20 p.m. at the intersection of Shellslinger Street and Green Avenue. The deputy was injured and taken to a nearby hospital before being transported to a trauma center in Lafayette, according to Louisiana State Police spokesperson Trooper Thomas Gosson. Little information was immediately available regarding the severity of the deputy's injuries and what led to the shooting. It was unclear what the second man's involvement was in the incident. His body remained covered in the roadway until shortly after 2 p.m., at which point it was removed by crime scene investigators. Kirk Robinson, a neighbor, said he grew up with the man killed in Abbeville, who has not yet been identified by officials. Robinson described him as an easygoing, humorous man who was well-liked in the area. Robinson said he heard the gunshots from inside his home Wednesday afternoon and stepped outside to see the man's body lying in the street. Quote, "My heart was broken," Robinson said. He said the slain man, a father of 2 sons, was a veteran and had served overseas. Robinson and other acquaintances in the area said he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of his military service. Some friends said they felt that he had received adequate mental health assistance. His death Wednesday would not have happened. Robinson said he'd seen the man walking in the street alone, acting oddly and either talking or singing to himself. Another neighbor said she and others were crushed by the shooting. She described him as kind-hearted and friendly to his neighbors. The woman attended church with the man in the years past, before he moved down the street. Quote, "I just wonder what happened," she said. "All I know is we're all heartbroken. It's a sad time." And now, we'll take a momentary break from the headlines for this PSA. United Way of Acadiana is offering free tax preparation. The United Way of Acadiana is offering free tax preparation services through its Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. The program provides low and moderate income individuals and families with free, reliable assistance with filing federal tax returns. There are 12 filing locations participating this year throughout the Acadiana region. Most locations are by appointment only due to COVID-19 safety restrictions. Please visit unitedwayofacadiana.org/VITA for site locations, opening dates, and to make appointments. For additional resources, visit myfreetaxes.com to learn more about alternate free or low-cost filing options currently available. The VITA program is just one way the United Way of Acadiana is working to help individuals and families achieve and maintain financial stability. Learn about additional programs by visiting unitedwayofacadiana.org. And with that, we will now return to our headlines from across the Acadiana area with this. Quote, a Louisiana treasure. Lafayette family's opening day tradition survives hurricane damage at Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. Shimona Alfred kept alive a family tradition Monday when she loaded up her car and family in Lafayette and drove to Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge in Cameron Parish. Every year, when the refuge opens for recreational fishing on March 1st, Alfred and her family find a place along the banks to fish and crab. Rockefeller, which is managed by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, is closed from December 1st to March 1st each year to allow waterfowl, other birds, and wildlife to remain undisturbed. Quote, the earliest I can remember doing this was when I was 5 or 6 years old, said Alfred, now 42. We would load up into several cars and come out on March 1st, opening day. It was just a wonderful family day, and we always did well. I can remember my dad saying, the fish haven't eaten since December when they closed it down, so it'll be a good fishing day. And it always has been. On Monday, Alfred said she, along with 4 other members of her family, caught several dozen crabs, several drum and reds. She was most proud of a bull drum she landed, she said. Quote, I can't ever remember having a bad day on March 1st when we've come here, Alfred said. It wasn't too crowded today, and I guess that's because it was a Monday. It was also the first day the refuge reopened to the public for recreational fishing since August 29th, when Rockefeller, along with much of the southwest Louisiana, suffered damage from the landfall of Hurricane Laura. Quote, Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge is such a Louisiana treasure, said Wildlife and Fisheries Secretary Jack Montusset. We're glad to have it reopened so folks like Miss Alfred can enjoy the great fishing opportunity that it offers. Our awesome team at Rockefeller worked long hours, days, and months to restore as much as they could, and they did so while repairing the damage to their own homes and property. I'm so proud of them all. Alfred said that she was concerned that the refuge wouldn't be ready, but was glad last week when she learned it would be, at least partially, reopened. Although many public fishing areas, including piers and boat docks, reopened Monday, there are some areas that remain closed or restricted because of ongoing repair. Signage identifying those areas is posted, and users are asked to obey all restrictions. Quote, we're glad that we've been able to reopen the refuge because we understand how much the public enjoys the great outdoor opportunities Rockefeller provides, said Scooter Trosclair, manager of the refuge. However, folks need to be aware that there are still repairs being done. It's important that visitors heed the signs around the refuge, warning them of the possible danger. Since 1983, regulated sport fishing has been permitted on certain parts of the refuge. Abundant fish and shellfish populations provide recreational opportunities to fishermen seeking shrimp, crab, red drum, speckled trout, black drum, and largemouth bass. Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge consists of 71,000 acres, borders the Gulf of Mexico for 261 miles, and extends inland towards the Grand Chenier Ridge, a stranded beach ridge 6 miles from the Gulf. For more information on Rockefeller, please visit wlf.louisiana.gov/Rockefeller-wildlife-refuge. And now, we will broaden our scope from the Acadiana region to the state of Louisiana as a whole, as we turn to our first state headline, which reads, Judge to hear suit targeting reporter on Thursday. Landry refuses to provide investigation records. And this is written by Gordon Russell. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry's unusual lawsuit against a reporter for The Advocate and the Times-Picayune, who sought public records related to a sexual harassment investigation of one of Landry's top aides, is set to be heard in a Baton Rouge courtroom Thursday. Landry sued reporter Andrea Gallo on February 5th, almost 2 months after she filed a request to the Attorney General's office seeking the records of an investigation into Pat McGee, head of the office's criminal division. The suit has attracted national attention, prompting a story in the Washington Post and a critical statement from the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. The case is set to be heard by 19th Judicial District Judge Tim Kelly. The saga dates to December 14th, when Gallo asked for records of any sexual harassment complaints filed against McGee, as well as any records showing how those complaints were handled. McGee was placed on administrative leave the same day. Landry's public records coordinator, Aisel Nakby, wrote Gallo back in early January to say that the office could not provide the records immediately because they were in use, and that records of internal investigations do not become public until after the investigations are over. Nakby also wrote that, quote, the exemptions are temporary and not permanent, and we will make the appropriate documents available once the investigation is over. By that time, Landry's office had contracted with Vicky Crochet of the law firm Taylor Porter to handle the probe into McGee's behavior at a cost not to exceed $20,000. McGee came back to work on January 19th after that investigation was complete. But despite the earlier assurances, Landry's office announced that neither Crochet's report nor any of the complaints against McGee would be released. Instead, Landry simply said McGee had, quote, engaged in inappropriate verbal conversations, used sexual slang, and made other unprofessional remarks over employees' looks. McGee's pay was docked $20,559, and he was ordered to take courses on workplace behavior. Landry's lawyers said that they were going to keep the complaints against McGee secret because of a constitutional right to privacy, as well as policies of Landry's office and state civil service rules that call for confidentiality in sexual harassment investigations. The newspaper suggested redacting names and other information that might identify victims or witnesses, but said the office had to turn over the records. Landry then sued, seeking a declaratory judgment declaring the records off-limit, sealing court records in the matter, and forcing Gallo to pay fees. The newspaper filed a counterclaim this week saying Landry should be forced to turn over the relevant documents, with names redacted if necessary. Scott Sternberg, the newspaper's lawyer, also asked Kelly to assess Landry's attorney's fees, plus penalties of $100 per day dating back to December 14th. The newspaper also argued that the proceedings should not be sealed. Landry's lawsuit has drawn widespread criticism, including from the Public Affairs Research Council, a good government group. In a strongly worded commentary, PAR expressed concern that a lawsuit by the state's top law enforcement officer would send a message to governmental entities across the state that it is acceptable to file such preemptive lawsuits to avoid disclosing potentially embarrassing facts. On Monday, a consortium of media organizations, including The Lens, Gray Media Group, the Louisiana Press Association, and the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, filed a, quote, friend of the court brief in support of the Advocate and the Times-Picayune. Landry is not the first Louisiana official to file such a lawsuit, but he is the most prominent. Sternberg has also represented reporters and citizens in two similar cases filed by governmental bodies in the Monroe area. And now, to our next state headline, which reads, Miles seeks release of LSU report into his conduct, citing unfair reporting. And this is written by Brooks Cabina. Saying he is tired of, quote, unfair and speculative reporting, former LSU football coach Les Miles is calling for the release of a report from a secret 2013 investigation into allegations of sexual harassment by Miles, a report the coach had previously sought to keep secret. A longtime attorney for Miles, New York-based Peter Ginsburg, said in an email Wednesday that releasing the report is the, quote, only way to clarify what Ginsburg called unfair and speculative reporting in the past week about the investigation. In an earlier effort to prevent the findings from becoming public, Miles had intervened in a lawsuit USA Today filed in January against LSU. USA Today reported last week that the investigation, conducted by the law firm Taylor Porter, probed whether Miles sexually harassed students and made sexist comments about women. The investigation found his actions improper, but did not rise to the level of breaking the law, according to the newspaper, citing sources. Around the same time period, Miles entered a settlement with a student who he was accused of harassing, sources confirmed to this newspaper. Reached by phone last week, Miles denied any improper advances towards students, but he did not address the settlement. Ginsburg said a description of the settlement was, quote, incomplete and inaccurate. Ginsburg wrote Wednesday that the Taylor Porter report addressed, quote, certain claims involving Coach Miles, and that the release of its findings, quote, is the only way to clarify the misinformation and to halt the unsubstantiated attacks. USA Today sued LSU in January after the university refused to turn over a copy of the investigation in response to a public records request. LSU's attorneys said making the report public would deprive Miles of his constitutional right to privacy. Shortly after USA Today filed suit, attorneys for Miles joined the case. No motion has yet been made to officially release the report, according to Baton Rouge court records, and lawyer Scott Sternberg, who represents USA Today, declined to comment about the case. But Sternberg said he's also just received Ginsburg's letter and said it still remains the judge's decision whether the report is ultimately released. Sternberg often represents this newspaper in legal matters as well, but the Advocate and the Times-Picayune is not involved in the Miles case. Still, Miles and his legal team's request is a significant development that comes days after LSU will release a long-awaited report Friday from the law firm Hirsch Blackwell over how the university has handled past complaints of sexual misconduct and domestic violence on campus. And with that, we will take another short break from our headlines to bring you Today in History, famous birthdays, and the Daily Horoscope. We begin with Today in History, which is brought to us by the Associated Press. Today is Thursday, March the 4th, the 63rd day of 2021. There are 302 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history is, on March 4th, 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office as America's 32nd president. On this date, in 1789, the Constitution of the United States went into effect as the first federal Congress met in New York. The lawmakers then adjourned for lack of a quorum. In 1797, John Adams was inaugurated as the second president of the United States. In 1863, the Idaho Territory was created. In 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated for a second term of office. With the end of the Civil War in sight, Lincoln declared, "With malice towards none, with charity for all." In 1964, Teamsters President James Hoffa and 3 co-defendants were found guilty by a federal court in Chattanooga, Tennessee, of jury tampering. In 1981, a jury in Salt Lake City convicted Joseph Paul Franklin, an avowed racist and serial killer, of violating the civil rights of 2 black men, Ted Fields and David Martin, who had been shot to death. Franklin received 2 life sentences for this crime. He was executed in 2013 for the 1977 murder of a Jewish man, Gerald Gordon. In 1987, President Ronald Reagan addressed the nation on the Iran-Contra affair, acknowledging that his overtures to Iran had, quote, deteriorated into an arms for hostages deal. In 1994, in New York, 4 extremists were convicted of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing that killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. In 1998, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sexual harassment at work can be illegal even when the offender and victim are of the same gender. In 2015, the Justice Department cleared Darren Wilson, a white former Ferguson, Missouri police officer, in the fatal shooting of Michael Brown, a black 18-year-old, but also issued a scathing report calling for sweeping changes in city law enforcement practices. In 2018, former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter were found unconscious on a bench in the southwestern English city of Salisbury. Both survived what British authorities said was a murder attempt using a nerve agent. 10 years ago today, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's regime struck back at its opponents with a powerful attack on Zawiya, the closest opposition-held city to Tripoli, and a barrage of tear gas and live ammunition to smother new protests in the capital. 5 years ago today, the U.S. Supreme Court blocked enforcement of a Louisiana clinic regulation law placing new restrictions on abortion. And 1 year ago today, the House easily passed an $8.3 billion measure aimed at spending on the development of coronavirus vaccines, paying for containment operations, and beefing up preparedness. And now, we move to today's famous birthdays. We'll start with actor Paula Prentiss, who's 83 today. Movie director Adrian Lyne is 80 today. Singer Shakin' Stevens is 73. Actor James Elroy has also turned 73. Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry has turned 71 today. Singer Chris Ray is 70. Actor and rock singer Ron Moss is 69 today. Actor Kay Lenz is 68. Musician Emilio Estefan is 68. Movie director Scott Hicks has also turned 68. Actor Catherine O'Hara has turned 67 today. Actor Patricia Heaton is 63. Senator Tina Smith, a Democrat of Minnesota, is 63 as well today. Actor Steven Weber has turned 60. Rock musician Jason Newsted is 58. Actor Stacey Edwards is 56. Rapper Grand Poobah has turned 55. Rock singer Evan Dando of the Lemonheads is 54. Senator James Lankford, a Republican of Oklahoma, is 53 today. Gay rights activist Chaz Bono has turned 52. Actor Nick Sabile is 51. Country singer Jason Sellers has turned 50. Jazz musician Jason Marsalis is 54. Actor Jessica Heap has turned 38. And finally, actor Scott Michael Foster is 36 today. With that, we now turn to our daily horoscope. We begin with Pisces, which is birth dates of February 20th to March 20th. Push for what you want. Be aware of what's going on around you and use whatever is available to realize your pursuits. A change of heart will help you ditch something that is holding you back. For Aries, which is March 21st to April 19th birth dates, pay attention to detail. Don't risk your health and physical well-being. Rely on your intelligence, not your emotions, when making financial decisions. An abrupt change will cause trouble. For Taurus, which is birth dates of April 20th to May 20th, listen to others before you reveal your feelings or intentions. Have your facts straight and a reasonable alternative prepared before you try to persuade others to do things your way. For Gemini, which is birth dates of May 21st to June 20th, you'll be ill-advised by someone using emotional tactics. Focus on facts, the truth, and what you see with your own eyes. Do things for yourself and avoid being put in a challenging position. For Cancer, which is birth dates of June 21st to July 22nd, you'll adjust quicker than you anticipate if you make a move or change the way you do things. Let your imagination lead the way, and you'll see the potential in something or someone. For Leo, which is birth dates of July 23rd to August 22nd, concentrate on something you enjoy doing. Refuse to let others upset you. Pay attention to what and who will help you gain the most. Invest time and money in something that you do well. For Virgo, which is birth dates of August 23rd to September 22nd, concentrate on home, family, and what brings you joy. Nurture meaningful relationships and strive to make your home welcoming. For Libra, which is September 23rd to October 23rd birth dates, figure out the best way to proceed, then take action. Don't wait for someone to step in and take charge. Indecisiveness will be your downfall. For Scorpio, which is October 24th to November 22nd birth dates, discuss what's bothering you to nullify a challenging situation. The sooner you find out where you stand, the easier it will be to make adjustments. New beginnings will lead to better days ahead. For Sagittarius, which is November 23rd to December 21st birth dates, don't support someone who has a hidden agenda or uses manipulative tactics to sway people's opinions. Take a no-nonsense approach to how you live, what you believe, and how you treat others. For Capricorn, which is December 22nd to January 19th birth dates, channel your energy into getting ahead. Productivity will lead to opportunity. Take action and turn an idea into something concrete. A change of heart will help you progress. And finally, for Aquarius, which is January 20th to February 19th birth dates, a challenge will leave you feeling confused. Take a closer look and you'll discover that you have the upper hand. Use your expertise to overcome any change that comes your way. And now, we will return to our state headlines with this. UN panel cites environmental racism in Louisiana. Observers, industrial growth fails to protect Cancer Alley residents. And this is written by David J. Mitchell. United Nations observers said this week that further industrialization in the Mississippi River corridor between Baton Rouge and New Orleans is a form of environmental racism against the area's black residents and must be stopped despite past failures by the state and federal government to halt its continued expansion. The communique from the UN's Special Repertoire on Contemporary Racism and other officials specifically identifies, as an example, the $9.4 billion Formosa Plastics complex that would be built near the graves of suspected former enslaved people. The complex is proposed for northwestern St. James Parish near predominantly black communities. Quote, this form of environmental racism poses serious and disproportionate threats to the environment of several human rights of its largely African American residents, including the right to equality and non-discrimination, the right to life, the right to health, right to an adequate standard of living, and cultural rights. E. Tindayai Nchume, the Special Repertoire, and other UN staffers said in a joint statement issued on Tuesday. Formosa said it was building on land recommended to it by St. James Parish officials for industrial development. Activists have challenged the way the parish selected the site. The UN panel, made up of people the organization deems to be experts on the environment, race, and human rights, contend federal environmental regulations have failed to protect people residing in the area they called Cancer Alley. The UN statement also tried to tie the river region's pre-Civil War history, when enslaved black people were used as the primary labor force for an agricultural economy, to the industrial operations that have slowly filled the land near where those enslaved people's progeny now live. Quote, originally called plantation country, where enslaved Africans were forced to labor, the petrochemical corridor along the lower Mississippi River has not only polluted the surrounding water and air, but also subjugated its mostly African American residents to cancer, respiratory problems, and other adverse health effects, the UN statement says. The new UN statement came after law students in Loyola Law School's Human Rights Advocacy Project in New Orleans developed a 9-page appeal to Akume for a human rights investigation during the fall semester. Akume said visiting the site as part of a probe would require an invitation from the U.S. government. Akume, as a special repertoire, is part of the Special Procedures of Human Rights Council system. It includes independent and voluntary fact-finders who are not employees of the UN. Akume, a law professor at UCLA, was not immediately available by email Wednesday. A spokesperson for FGLA LLC, the Formosa subsidiary behind the proposed plastics complex, said the company located in the area because it was on a site the parish council had previously designated for industry and came after a rigorous selection process conducted with the Louisiana Economic Development and parish government. The facility design uses advanced emission controls and other, quote, extensive measures to protect the environment, and FG plans, quote, to keep pace with technological advances that may enable the company to further strengthen those measures, said Janelle Parks, a company spokesperson. Parks and a state chemical industry trade group also pushed back against the concept of Cancer Alley, saying there is, quote, no scientific proof that cancer rates in the river corridor, in St. James Parish, or in the northwestern area of St. James, where Formosa would build, are higher due to industrial activity. Quote, in fact, cancer rates and deaths are lower than, or there is no significant difference from the rest of the state, Parks said. Reports issued by the Louisiana Tumor Registry, the state's cancer data aggregator, clearly established this point. There is no Cancer Alley. Louisiana industry groups have often made this point through the years, citing the registry's data. But environmentalists have argued that incidences, which are subject to a variety of factors, not just air pollution, are not the same as cancer risks. The broadside from the UN represents a direct challenge to one of Louisiana's bread and butter economic engines at a time when the Formosa Project and state and federal regulators have faced backlash from local and environmental groups. Greg Bowser, president and CEO of Louisiana Chemical Association, said racial demographics are not used to cite plants. Quote, "We do not know if this group found evidence of such actions, and if they did, the statement they released does not share that information with the general public," he said. The Formosa complex would be built in 2 phases along the Mississippi River and has been seen as a big economic development win for the state, bringing 1,200 permanent jobs, thousands more temporary construction jobs, and millions of dollars in sales and property tax revenue for local and state governments. Governor John Bel Edwards and local officials support the project. But environmental groups argue it would be a major source of toxic air pollutants and greenhouse gas emission in a region where questions about the fairness and justice of placing another new polluting complex near Black communities have often been raised. The UN statement asserted that the Formosa complex would be one of the largest plastic facilities in the world. It claims the facility would double cancer rates for residents in the area and contribute to greenhouse gas emission in St. James that would, quote, exceed those of 113 countries. The St. James Parish Council granted a key land use approval for the project at the end of 2018. But activists have challenged the complex air permit in state court and wetlands permit in federal court. Both challenges have, in part, raised environmental justice concerns that have forced delays. Last fall, facing a legal challenge in federal court, the United States Army Corps of Engineers suspended a wetlands permit while it reviews its analysis of Formosa's site selection process. Also, a Baton Rouge State Court judge, Trudy White, ordered the State Department of Environmental Quality to take a closer look at the St. James Parish facility's emissions impacts on Black residents living nearby and more properly evaluate the environmental justice questions that may arise. The Formosa complex will produce the raw materials for a variety of plastics that have been permitted to emit more than 800 pounds of toxic pollutants annually. Nearly 6,500 tons of criteria pollutants known to cause ground-level ozone and respiratory ailments, and more than 13.6 million tons of greenhouse gases, the Department of Environmental Quality says. In 2019, a joint investigation by The Advocate, the Times-Picayune, and ProPublica, using U.S. Environmental Protection Agency modeling data, found Formosa and other new industrial proposals in St. James since 2015 pose an acute impact on predominantly poor and Black river communities, though white communities hardly escaped it. The investigation found that emissions from Formosa alone would mean that residents in Covenant, across the river from Formosa, would face double the toxic levels of cancer-causing chemicals they currently do, while those in the West Bank communities of St. James would see those levels triple. The UN officials made a similar point about the increase in toxic emissions expected from Formosa, though they cited different EPA risk data. Quote, "The construction of the new petrochemical complexes will exacerbate the environmental pollution and the disproportionate adverse effects on the rights to life, to an adequate standard of living, and the right to health of African American communities," they said. In the Department of Environmental Quality's air permit decision for Formosa, however, the agency challenged heavy reliance on federal modeling data used in the newspaper analysis, saying it was simplified and represented a worst-case scenario. The agency said it did extra investigation, considered actual conditions, and found the plant would not adversely affect human life or the environment. The agency plans to appeal White's ruling ordered it to take a closer look at its environmental justice analysis. A spokesperson for the agency declined to comment on the UN statement Wednesday, citing the Formosa litigation. Parks, the FG spokesperson, said, quote, "Any claims that FG will greatly increase toxic emissions in the area is a misrepresentation and inaccurate." FG's own air modeling has found, she said, that ambient air emissions once the plant starts operating would, quote, "meet the lower health risk factor suggested by the National Air Toxic Assessment." This is a 1 in 10,000 chance that a person would get cancer from breathing air in an area over a lifetime. Janae M. Woods, a now retired Loyola law professor who led the law class project last semester that resulted in the appeal to Akume, said her students for the past several years have looked at Louisiana and its environment. They decided last year to seek out the UN report as a way to bring international attention to the region. And now, we will move to our final headline of the morning. It comes to us from the world of sports, and it reads, "In it to win it." Cajun trio Mathis, Ducey, Burton won it all after overcoming so many obstacles this season. And this is written by Kevin Foote. When you get as close as the pot of gold at the end of the long, winding road that was the college careers of UL women's basketball seniors Kim Burton, Jamari Mathis, and Tyrona Ducey, it's only natural to look back at the obstacles overcome along the way. As the Sun Belt Conference regular season champion, Ragin' Cajuns prepare to begin their quest for an NCAA tournament automatic bid in a 1:30 p.m. Saturday Sun Belt quarterfinal in Pensacola, Florida. Their respective journeys include issues athletes have encountered for decades, and some their predecessors never even imagined. Quote, "I'm just so excited," Burton said of the Cajuns winning the outright Sun Belt crown Saturday, while extending their winning streak to 13 games. "I'm still on cloud 9. It's just a great feeling." For the time each one arrived in Lafayette to begin their quest for championship glory with Coach Gary Broadhead, each player had their own challenges to overcome. Ducey had a head start. The Ville Platte native met Broadhead as a 7th grader. In fact, Broadhead offered her a scholarship in the 8th grade. And when serious knee injuries derailed Ducey in high school, Broadhead stayed close. Quote, "We kept in touch throughout all of my injuries and stuff," Ducey said. "He actually found a surgeon for my right knee." But while Ducey had more of a history with Broadhead upon beginning her college career, that didn't mean that wasn't a long transition period. Philosophically, Broadhead was not a big believer in what Ducey thought she did best: block shots. He wanted her to take charges instead. Quote, "I was confused," Ducey laughed. "I was like, well, if I can't take charges, then what am I going to do? I was so used to blocking shots. I was leading the state for so long in blocking shots. My freshman year, I kept trying to block shots, but I kept getting fouls called because I didn't understand the timing." So when Broadhead finally relented and gave her the go-ahead last season, she was ecstatic inside. Quote, "It finally happened last year when I started blocking more without getting fouled," she said. "I didn't show it and I didn't express it, but yeah, I was screaming inside. I finally had the green light to do it." For the upbeat, jovial Burton, it was more of a matter of meshing personalities. Quote, "When I first came, I thought, well, he's a jolly guy," Burton remembered. "There would be some days when we'd come into practice and he'd be grumpy, then he'd be over it." 4 years later, Burton appreciates Broadhead's total dedication to the game and his team. Quote, "I'm blessed to have a coach like that," she said. "It took time because I didn't have that growing up and coming from high school. When I got here, I had to learn how to deal with a coach like that. I feel like it got easier as time progressed." These days, Burton is a virtual mind doctor for her coach. Quote, "She's like my right-hand person. She calms me down," Broadhead admitted. He done got a soft spot now," Burton analyzed. "He's not as uptight as he used to be my freshman year coming in. He's starting to relax now." For Mathis, the adjustment ranged from her new coach's defensive style to communication gaps. Quote, I was used to my coaches coming to me and telling me what to do, rather than me going to them for things like asking them what my role was, Mathis said. So initiating the conversation was one, and also the system he had built for his team was kind of different for me. The bumpy road was especially difficult for Mathis, a New Orleans native from Landry Walker High, because of her constant drive for perfection. Quote, it was tough, Mathis said. I've always been like this, probably since I made it out the womb. I was a perfectionist. I don't know what it is. I guess it was how I was raised. I just want everything to go right. I want it done to the best of my ability. I want it done the correct way. It's tough when I miss a shot or turn the ball over or someone scores on me. It gets to me and it still does, but I had to learn to move on. Along the way, Mathis said her coaches taught her that mistakes are part of growing as a player. And in this season, so was comprehending the value of taking charges. Quote, coming here was my first time actually learning how to take a charge, Mathis said. I would say I got it maybe 90% the end of my sophomore year. Today, Broadhead lauds Mathis as a good defender, but it didn't happen overnight. Quote, before coming here, you basically slide everywhere, Mathis explained. Here, it's not slide. You're running everywhere. You literally have to run from spot to spot. That took me a long time to get used to. Quote, actually, I'm helping former UL teammate Nakia Jones coach her AAU team, and we're teaching the kids defense. Now I see the importance of running when you're getting beat instead of trying to slide your feet, because as you continue to slide, you're riding them and they're beating you instead of you trying to sprint to beat them to the spot. I was like, okay, now I get it. That part of it was never a problem for Burton. She was recruited to play defense. In fact, Burton can see herself shouting out many of Broadhead's standards to her Red River High players next season, her old high school where she'll be the head coach. Quote, I'm very, very excited for that opportunity and very vocal when it comes to dealing with my teammates. And the first message she'll give for her new team? Defense. Hard work and defense, Burton said. We've got to defend, and if we can't defend, you can't play. Duce, on the other hand, is considering the option of playing professional ball overseas. Mathis plans on graduating on May 14th and then pursuing a master's degree in petroleum engineering. She said it's possible she could return to the Cajuns next season. No, the perfectionist didn't achieve a 4.0, but she was close. Quote, I have a 3.8, but it's close enough, Mathis smiled. It's better than most, and to say I'm maintaining it while playing basketball through all the physically tired stuff. So yeah, I'm going to let myself slide with it and be proud of myself for it. Burton's career began with UL reaching the Sun Belt Tournament Finals and losing to Troy. All three of them endured the 7-23 season 2 years ago. And all three had their hearts broken when the coronavirus pandemic hit 2 days before traveling to the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans for the Sun Belt Tournament's Final Four. Fast forward to this March, this trio is leading the Cajuns to the moment they've all been waiting for. Quote, this team is very different from any other team over the past 4 years, Mathis said. I feel like we connect better. We're a true family. We're always there for each other. We do a lot of chemistry building things off of the court. We're very fun. We click together. They've been through it all, and now they want it all. Quote, we're excited about the win that we got, and we know we can go even further. Now, before we close today's program, we will take a look at the funerals today in the Acadiana area. We begin with Lee Blanchard, with services at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, located at 116 Main Street at 11 a.m. We have Rodney Meir, with services at Evangeline Memorial Gardens Chapel in Carencro at 2 p.m. And our final is Brandon Renard, with services at David Funeral Home of Erath at 3 p.m. And with that, This has been Local News Live for March 4th, 2021. And I've been your reader, Daniel Rayburn. Join us at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AOC 1, Cypress Street Radio, or the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com and find out how to volunteer and more at aocinc.org. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you will do the same again tomorrow. Have a great day, Acadiana.